Now let me show you something else that you can do. If you hold down Control and L on your keyboard, you get this gizmo on your viewport. And now if you move your mouse to the left and right, you get to change the time of the day, and you get to simulate different times in the day. You get to have the morning, noon, afternoon, and night. And so this is a very useful and handy tool, and you will only get this gizmo and icon when you have a sky atmosphere, a directional light, and a skylight. So if you have those elements present, you can use this gizmo to your benefit and simulate different times of the day, and you get really gorgeous lights. Especially if you want to have a single frame render, this works wonders. See how beautiful, how gorgeous the lights are, and you can just tweak and change the placement of your sun too, and get the shot that you want. So remember, if you have the sky atmosphere, directional light, and the skylight, with Control and L on the keyboard and with your mouse, you can just achieve this. So see how beautiful everything is. This light, like simulating sundown, it's just gorgeous. Okay, so let me just change this back to a morning type of time. All right, so okay, this is good. And other than this trick, you can also use the directional light, your sun, and you can just change the direction of your sun, and that will do this, achieve something similar to this too. So you can just do the same thing with your sun or directional light. You can change the angle and get different times of the day. So I think I need to decrease my exposure a little, so I select my post process and put the exposure on 12 or maybe 10. Okay, this is better. Okay, what's amazing about this is that with a few clicks and a few changes, we get this scene, we get this lighting, and it's just gorgeous. So this is the beauty of using this method. So one method, the first one that I told you about, we achieved the lighting that we wanted without the use of a sky atmosphere, and we instead used a cube map source type and an HDRI image, and we can just change the intensity too. So this was the first method that we learned to work with. For the second method, I need to enable real-time capture, and I also need a sky atmosphere that I just put into my scene. And with just these three elements, it's sky atmosphere, directional light, and skylight, I get this perfect lighting, and just the lighting is just gorgeous. It's awesome, and it's amazing how easy it is to achieve this level of lighting with just a few clicks. Okay, so as we are checking out different parts of the scene, you can see how beautiful the shadows, the reflections, and everything are. All right, let me just delete these elements, and we're about to learn a new method of lighting our scenes. So I need to go to this add button and go to lights, but be sure to just take notes and remember the things that we just did and the two methods that we learned. So make sure to practice them also. Okay, let's move on to the next type of light that we want to explore. So the next one that I want you to learn about is called HDRI backdrop. And the thing is, with gaming blanks, we don't by default have this HDRI backdrop option. So we need to go to plugins from edit and search for HDRI, and you get this HDRI backup, and you check it, and it tells you that you need to restart Unreal to get it. So I add an HDRI backdrop, I drag it into my scene, and you instantly see it. Let me just zoom back, and you can see that it's like a spherical image that encapsulates my whole atmosphere. And the thing with this HDRI image is that it has like a ground point, and you need to check the inside of your project and elevate your building a little bit so that you don't get the greeneries and ground of the HDRI image inside your building. So make sure that you put the HDRI image a little bit lower than the floor of your building, or elevate your building a little bit. Either one works, and so you don't get those greeneries inside your building. Right now our scene is a little bit too dark, and I want to ask you, what can we do to remedy this? I can do two things. I can increase the exposure in my post-process volume, or I can increase the amount of light in my HDRI image. So we can do these two things. So let's just start exploring the HDRI. Let's see what it's made of. It consists of a geometry, okay, which is this sphere that you see right now, and also a skylight that we talked about a little bit earlier. So the skylight works the same as before, but this time the difference is with the backdrop that we also get to see the HDRI image. We get to see these trees, we get to see these greeneries. So last time with HDRI cubic maps, we didn't see them, we saw the effects, but this time we also see them. Let me just change the HDRI image. Right now we are seeing a different background, maybe from the season fall, and we can just change this HDRI image until we find one that we are happy with, and each one gives us a different level or amount of light. We can always change the intensity, and we should, because different images and different atmospheres require different intensities, and we gotta tweak these intensity and these settings so that we get the lights that we want. The problem with these HDR backdrops is that we don't really get sharp shadows. We get really soft looking and blurred shadows. So the lights are okay, the lighting is okay, and we get realistic, nice looking lights, but the shadows are very soft and very blurred. So you gotta have that in mind. Now, as I mentioned before, we don't have one great method for lighting every scene. With every scene, you gotta test out different methods and different backdrops to find out what works best with your scene. Let me just change the exposure real quick. Put 13, for example. Okay. Again, we are getting nice looking lights with just an HDRI image. It's amazing how gorgeous these lights are. Again, the shadows are soft, but the lighting is very realistic and very nice looking. So, and let me just change the HDRI image again. And with each HDRI image, we get different values and different types of lights. Let me just find one with a little bit of sun. Okay, let's see, not this one. Let me just change this again, find a sunny one. Okay, let me see, maybe this one. All right, so okay, so we have some sun here, it's kind of sunny, and we can rotate the HDRI image with this gizmo too. So we change the angle, and we can get different angles and different reflections with just changing the angle of our HDRI image. Okay, next we have a size for the HDRI image as well for the sphere. For example, if I put 10, it will be a lot smaller as this sphere here, and it kind of affects our scene too. If we choose a value too small, it's problematic. So the HDRI backdrop itself is a blueprint, and we will later on learn about what blueprints are and what they do, but if we knew how to work with them, we could have edited them there. So the HDRI image, make sure that the size is a size that encapsulates the whole project. For example, 150 for my project would be enough, and it encapsulates the whole thing. Let me just change the backdrop again. With this one, we're getting a kind of greenish tint, and we can just change it again, find another one. And we gotta do this enough time so that we get one that suits our project. And I'm just repeating myself, but it's very important so that you understand that we don't have one great lighting method. We just experiment with different methods and different backdrops and different images until we get something that works for our projects. For example, this one, this desert one works good with my project, so I'm gonna keep it on this one. And I'm happy with the lights generally, but I want to find a way to have more attractive shadows. Okay, I want to have it is cloudy, the weather is kind of cloudy, and I get that, but I want to have like better shadows. And to achieve that, one way is to add a directional light. So I can go to lights and drag a directional light into my scene, change the angle like we used to do, and then we start changing the angle and tweaking the placement of this directional light so that we get a kind of result that we're looking for. Yeah, beautiful. See, with just this directional source of light, with this sun, we took care of the shadows problem that we had, and you can see how beautiful, how gorgeous this lighting is. and I press F11, and then I start navigating through this beautiful building and check out the reflections, the shadows, and everything. And remember, ray tracing has been enabled for me, and this is the result that I'm getting with ray tracing. And if I didn't want to use ray tracing, or if I wanted to disable it, maybe I need to add a few more sources of light, and we will talk about that in the next session. So right now I can again change the HDRI backdrop, and for example with another one, let's see, this one, we're getting a more fallish autumn look. Let me just change it again, and basically this is the first thing that we did to add those sharp less soft shadows that we wanted. So let me just change the HDRI image and put it on the desert that we had originally picked, and delete the directional light. Now I'm going to tell you about another method to add those sharp looking shadows that you want for your project. Okay, so without the directional light, what can we do now? First, we need to go to our HDRI image and change the intensity, increase it, for example, put it on 40, okay? And then I'm going to use another source of light for our scene. I'm going to go to add, and from lights, I'm going to choose rec light, which is a very frequently used source of light. It's kind of like the V-Ray plane light that we have in V-Ray, and it's basically a screen with an angle that you can set that gives you light, and you can use it to get those shadows that you want. So let me just elevate it, put it up here, and right now you can see that we have sharper shadows on our floor. And if I press H on my keyboard, the shadows are gone, and if I press Ctrl and H and unhide it, you can see the shadows are back, and the size and the placement of this rec light is in direct relation with the sharpness of our shadows. So I go to source width and height, and I want to change these values into, for example, 10 for each, and I get a narrower source of light, and you can see that the shadows and the sharpness of them changed. And I put 200, for example, make it very big, and again you can see how softer the edges of the shadows got. So let me just repeat this process so that you can see it again. 10, see, look at the shadows, and let me just put 200. Okay, see how softer they got with an increase in the size of our rec light. Okay, now we have two more control options, one called barn door angle and another one barn door length, which lets us control the scope of our light sources, and we can just change the area that is affected or covered by our light sources. For example, let me start changing the barn door angle. Right now it's on 90. Let me just reduce it, and you can see the effect it has on our scene. And the length, okay, I can make it wider, a lot wider, and I get to play with these two options and change them until I get the type of light that I want, and I'm happy with the area that I want to be covered with that source light. So it really depends on your project requirements and the type of lighting that you want to have in a certain area. So these two options are very handy, and you can just play around with them until you get the hang of what they do. You can put just 0 for both of them, and this is what you get, and this is what I want to leave it at, and I put 10 for width and height. And let's move on. For temperature, we talked about temperature before. 3200 would be good, and then I can move the gizmo here under these actual lights that I have modeled before, but I need to change the size so that it fits. It's kind of fits that narrow rectangle light that I have. So I'm gonna change these numbers until they kind of resemble that shape. Okay, so let me try 450 for example. Okay, let's see. Okay, and I'm going to move it a little bit higher. Okay, we have effect world, which basically disables the temperature, and we also have cast shadows, which disables the shadows. And basically we have indirect lighting intensity, which is the amount of reflected light off of surfaces that we get, and it's a very useful option to tamper with if you are not using ray tracing. So you can just achieve a lot of great results with that, and I'm going to talk about that later on. Generally, the higher this number is, the more reflected light you will have in your scene and everything becomes brighter. So right now this is what we get with 0, and also let me just put 1 here. Okay, this is what we get with 1. This next option is not that important, and intensity, we can just change the amount of reflected light that we can have in our scene. Let me just finally change the width and height and angle of our rec light so that we are happy with it. So I'm going to change the angle to, I want it to be more focused. Let me just change the width again. Okay, I think we have too much intensity for this size, so I'm going to decrease the intensity. For example, put 2 or maybe 3. Okay, it looks nice, and after I'm happy with this rec light, okay, I can just copy it and put one for this other source of light that I have on the left, like so. And I can just put some final touches and change the angle and size again until I'm perfectly happy with the results. See how beautiful and gorgeous this scene has gotten, and see how easy it is to work with Unreal Engine for the lights. Awesome.